Peace, Love, Liberty Radio version 4.0. Prepare for launch.
OTC is go.
Packetbus is go.
PTC is go.
LPS is go.
Houston flight is go.
Molotov.
STM is go.
Safetycom is go.
STU is go.
LRD is go.
SRO is go. CDR is go.
Launch Director, NTD, our launch team is ready to proceed at this time.
99, proceeded, 3, 2, 1, ignition. Right away, Houston.
Consequences so severe, so pull your trigger quickly, dear. Our patriots are acting up, let's punish them with fear. Hey, hey!
Hey, welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. That's where you can find all of the archives as well as all of your listening options for not only Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, but also the daily newscast that I do, FPP Radio News, and the almost weekly. Over the last couple of months, there's been a couple of weeks where I've missed, but other than that, it's been weekly for almost 5 years. That's the FPP Freedom Minute. You can find all of those shows online at fppradio.com. And, of course, if you like the shows and you want to help out and donate, well, there's several ways that you can do that. There's one way that you can do that very directly by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and numerous supporters. And you get perks like ad-free versions of this as well as the daily newscast that I do. Go to fans.fppradio.com to find out all of the perks and to sign up. You can also help indirectly by shopping online. Go to shop.fppradio.com and shop some of my affiliates. Shop with my advertisers, such as Roberts and Roberts Brokerage. Although I don't get commission when you shop from Roberts and Roberts Brokerage, but it's good when you do buy gold and silver from Roberts and Roberts and you let them know that Darryl sent you, because then they know that the advertising is working. So let me jump into version 4.0 of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. And, I love seeing interesting studies. And sometimes, there's clickbaity headlines that totally misreport or misrepresent what was actually discovered in the study. But this is not one of them. Science finds an interesting link between wisdom and heart rates. And you might be thinking, well, of course, if you have a better heart rate, you might be a little smarter. Well, that's not exactly what they were testing, and it's not exactly what they found. Let me jump into the story here. The story that I'm reading comes from lifehack.org. I've also looked at the actual findings of the study reported over at sciencedaily.com. But let me just read the non-technical stuff from Lifehack. They say, for those that believe true wisdom comes from the heart, may actually not be far from the truth. A new study has been published in the journal Frontiers in Behavioral Neuroscience that suggests heart rate variation and thinking processes actually work together to create wise reasoning and the understanding of complex social issues. The study, carried out by Igor Grossman, professor of psychology at the University of Waterloo in Canada, and his colleagues at the Australian Catholic University, wanted to find out whether or not wisdom has purely to do with cognitive reasoning or if something else may be at play. The team used 150 participants from a Sydney university with the average age of 25 and asked them to take part in several tasks, including tasks that involve social reasoning and attributional judgment. The participants were required to give their opinions on subjects they felt strongly about from two perspectives. The first person, i.e. personal manner, and third person as a critical observer. They were then monitored for their resting heart rate variability throughout the task using an EEG, or rather an ECG, electrocardiogram. and all of the experiments were conducted during low physical activity. Heart rates naturally vary at any given time, even when we're just sitting down and resting, listening to a podcast, watching television, etc. Your heart rate will vary slightly. The variations between heartbeats are directly linked to the nervous system's controlling ability of organ function. However, for various reasons, some people's heart rates vary much more than others. And I remember that there were some studies that we talked about a while back where they found this as well. They were doing some studies, and I forget exactly what it was that they connected to the variations of heart rate. Might have been empathy, but I don't recall. So what were the results? Well, what researchers found from the results of the experiment was surprising. The participants who discussed the topics with a third-person perspective and possessed a greater heart rate variation were found to have a wiser, less biased view than those that had a smaller heart rate variation. However, this changed when the first-person perspective was used, where they discovered that there was no indication of a link between heart rate variation and wiser judgment. What exactly does this mean? Well, this is the first study to show that the physiology of the heart, and in particular heart rate variations, are related to less biased, wiser judgment and reasoning. It has already been discovered through previous studies that people with a higher heart rate variation tend to have a better ability in the use of memory. Professor Grossman explains that the study shows that cognitive ability isn't the only element at play when it comes to being wise. And before I get into what Professor Grossman says, I just want to mention that I did remember something about the heart rate variation and some kind of study, but had something to do with a connection to memory. And no, you cannot then deduce that my heart rate variation is, outside of whatever that relates to memory. I just have a absolutely horrible short-term memory from having way too many brain injuries. Yes, that's what a concussion is. I've talked about the concussions previously, and a concussion is an actual injury to the brain. So, when we come back, we'll get into a little bit more about what Professor Grossman says about this study, as well as ways that you can actually fend off anxiety. Stay tuned. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, Spendabit, and Amazon at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com. The Doublespeak Dictionary by Leslie Starr O'Hara satirizes the marked difference between the ideal of we the people and the reality of we the elite, while offering an insightful glimpse into the clockworks of the totalitarian mind. Ever irreverent but never irrelevant, the Doublespeak Dictionary serves as a subversive and humorous but timely reminder that the emperor has no clothes. The Doublespeak Dictionary is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry. Online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. So Professor Grossman, who did this study finding a link between heart rate variation and wisdom, says research shows that wise reasoning is not exclusively a function of the mind and cognitive ability. We found that people who have a greater heart rate variability and who are able to think about social problems from a distanced viewpoint demonstrate a greater capacity for wise reasoning. However, this does not necessarily mean that people with a greater heart rate variation are automatically wiser than others. People need to learn and take time to reflect on altruistic issues that come with third-person perspective and reasoning in order to achieve the ability to possess wiser judgment. Grossman says to channel their cognitive abilities for wiser judgment, people with greater heart rate variability first need to overcome their egocentric viewpoints. Either way, the study is an interesting insight into the relationship between physiology and cognitive understanding, which will no doubt lead the way to further research into how the heart's functioning really does impact the mind. And, of course, since I mentioned the report over at Science Daily, where they dig a little bit more in depth and actually link to the study, I will post that in the show notes as well. But, you know, a heart rate variation sometimes comes when you're stressed, when you're anxious about something. And, well, you know, sometimes when you're stressed, you're not exactly thinking straight. Doesn't mean that you're not a smart individual, does not mean that you're not wise, but, you know, sometimes things happen and you need to calm yourself down. And somebody telling you, calm down, in a very calm, soothing voice, sometimes is not going to calm you down. So how can you effectively overcome anxiety? Well, there's 5 unusual tips here from Lifehack, where they say being nervous or anxious is something that happens to everyone from time to time, whether it's fear of public speaking. And I might talk about a way that you can learn from stand-up comics to overcome that fear of public speaking. I've got that, had that in the show prep for a while, so might pull that up, time permitting, later in this show. But whether it's a fear of public speaking or stress from a personal struggle, anxiety is a fairly common occurrence. Unfortunately, occasional anxiety can develop into something more serious as the time goes on, and this is how it becomes a disorder. It can become so bad that it takes over your life and becomes a daily struggle. Luckily, there are many ways to fight anxiety. In very serious cases, you should consider consulting a qualified therapist. Alternatively, you could try out some of the solutions below. These are things you could do at home in your free time or any time you want. Number 1 on the list, they say sing your favorite song. Music has a calming and relaxing effect on human beings. More importantly, music can heal us. Before I continue, I just want to say that, you know, it doesn't have to necessarily be your favorite song. Could just be a song that you enjoy. I don't have a, you know, quote unquote favorite song. There are songs that I enjoy. There are songs that as soon as I hear like the first 3 notes of the song, just like my heart begins to smile because I know that's a good song. It's a song that, you know, is sort of uplifting, what have you. So just, you know, like sing a song that you like. Sing a song that you might, you know some of the words to. Like you don't have to sing it well. Just do something to wind up, you know, trying to uplift yourself. And, well, science has proven that singing when you're sad can actually wind up cheering you up. They say we listen to music when we're sad, happy, working, cleaning, etc. Everywhere we go, we tend to be surrounded by music. That being said, we as individuals have our own favorite types of music or a specific song that we enjoy. And each time we hear the song, we tend to feel better. So, the next time you feel anxious or nervous about something, put on your favorite tunes, and it might be a good idea, or rather, putting on your favorite tunes might be a good idea. Try singing along and getting into the groove. Singing loudly, they say, is a great way of letting all those pent-up emotions out. Although it might, you know, wind up upsetting the neighbors or the coworkers, depending on how loudly and badly you sing. But, you know, just sing to yourself if that's what you need to, if that's what the situation calls for. But choir singing in particular has been shown to significantly improve people's moods. Give it a shot. It could improve your mental state and make you happier, and you'll eventually be able to use it to overcome anxiety whenever you feel it coming on. Number 2, and this seems to be something catching on with a lot of people, especially adults, start drawing or coloring. There's been a huge increase in the adult coloring book industry. But, like you could go get a children's coloring book if that's what you want. At least, it's a possibility. They say art is another way of dealing with anxiety. And, it doesn't even have to be a coloring book. You could just, get a notepad and start doodling. Just, something. Drawing has an incredibly relaxing effect on people. It keeps you calm and focused. Also, you get lost while drawing or painting, so you forget about your worries for a moment. Therefore, if you're feeling uneasy, pick up a pen or a brush and start creating. For example, you could buy some watercolors and watercolor canvas, or simply buy coloring books. They do mention in here about the adult coloring books as being particularly trendy at the moment. In addition to being a wonderful therapy tool, it's a great way to kill time and unleash your inner child. Get a punching bag and a set of gloves, or put on your running shoes and go for a run. Basically, physical exertion is a great way of blowing off steam, fighting off anxiety in a sort of literal fight, if you will. Any form of physical exercise is good for you, but actually punching something seems to work wonders for both fitness and stress relief. This will give you the opportunity to get rid of all the negativity and bad emotions, and the heavy bag can take a whole lot of punishment without complaining. Just remember to get the technique down first, stretch beforehand, and properly protect your hands. And I want to stress that properly protect your hands, because I've gone not bare knuckle on a heavy bag, but, regular workout gloves, and yeah, it hurts if you hit it wrong. Stay tuned. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic. Find A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty by Darryl W. Perry on Facebook, read reviews on Amazon, ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs, with a story like no other game before. A liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to zog.ninja to get your copy of Hyperchronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hyperchronius, zog.ninja, code FPP.
This is Jeremy Scott, host of Dark 30. You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Speaking of physical activity, I have been going to the gym quite a lot recently, and I had talked about the triathlon that I did last summer, and initially I was going to do another triathlon this summer, but when I started trying to practice the swimming, I couldn't get the breathing down pat, and I started trying to, or not trying to panic, like I didn't want to panic, but I started panicking, trying to get the breathing down properly. So instead of doing the full triathlon, I'm doing just a 5K, and that's tomorrow. So after I get done recording this podcast today and getting it posted online, I'm going to go for a short run, not a long run, because you don't want to overexert yourself the day before the 5K, but I'll probably jog down or possibly just walk or ride my bike down to the health food store that is actually going out of business and see if I can get some really good deals on their final day. So get out and just go for a walk. If you're feeling a little anxious and stressed, just go for a walk. And it generally helps me. Or go to the gym, lift a bunch of heavy things, pick things up, put them down, put on the padded gloves and then just, like go to town on the punching bag. As long as you're making sure that your wrist is straight when you're making contact with the bag, then, you should not be getting hurt. Again, I'm not a professional when it comes to working out, but, as long as your wrist is straight, you're not going to bend your hand in some kind of weird way. So you want your knuckles to be flush and your wrist to be straight. And then you can jab, you can hook, you can, do whatever kind of punch. Just make sure that knuckles are flush, wrist is straight when you hit that bag. Number 4 on the list, and this is something that might wind up causing some people to actually get stressed, is household chores. They say our emotional state depends on the people around us as well as our physical surroundings. If your house or apartment is organized, you will feel the same way. If you live in a messy environment, however, then your emotions could be all over the place as well. This is why cleaning your house, that is, focusing on household chores, is a nice way to fight anxiety. And the reason that I say that this might wind up causing some people to be anxious is, if you are one of those people that lives in a house that's kind of messy, as it says, you might be sort of all over the place, scatterbrained, if you will, and you don't know where to start. But as we've talked previously about setting goals, instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to go clean the kitchen, and then you walk in and you see that the floor is dirty and the cabinet, there's stuff on the cabinets and there's a pile of dishes in the sink. You're like, I don't know where to start, and then you go take a nap or you watch Netflix. So you set it out and say, I'm going to wash the dishes in the sink. I'm going to wipe the counters. I'm going to wipe the cabinets. I'm going to sweep the floor. I'm going to mop the floor. And then you have several steps in which you're going. And then you get one thing done and you're like, all right, one thing's done. Now I can do the next thing. Instead of just, I'm going to clean the entire house. Well, I don't know where to start. Go take a nap. So, yes, while it might cause some people to have anxiety, it's also a good way to fight anxiety. Just think about it. They say, don't you feel better when your house is clean? When there are no clothes on the floor, dirty dishes in the sink, or dust all over the place? Clutter makes you feel more stressed and under more pressure, as if there's a heavy load literally hanging over your head waiting to explode. Tidying up is good for you, so get down to business as soon as possible. And number 5 on the list of 5 unusual but effective techniques for overcoming anxiety, they say, hear out the voice of doubt and then prove it wrong. Being confident is key when facing anxiety. If you don't believe in yourself, getting better only becomes more difficult. More importantly, letting others get you down is out of the question and should not be tolerated. Fortunately, there are methods you can use to silence your critical inner voice and overcome anxiety. And before I get into what they give as examples for, overcoming that inner voice, I just want to say that if your sole purpose is to prove people wrong, then you're probably not really ever going to be happy. And I say that as somebody that loves to prove people wrong. I love when somebody says, you can't do that, and I say, oh yeah, watch me. But there are times when I'm like, all right, so basically my only point of existing is to prove that I can do something. And you really need like a higher calling of life. So it's something other than just, I'm proving people wrong. So now let me get into the examples they give. They say, for example, you could practice being in uncomfortable and intimidating situations. This will give you an insight into the proper reactions and solutions. Being confronted by a friend or critiqued by a boss are just some of the many examples. Moreover, you can take up a new course where you will be surrounded by new people. Find some sort of class at the local community college Not necessarily one of the classes that meets 3 times a week, 2 times a week, whatnot. But a lot of times, local community colleges will have like what they call like continuing education sort of things, to where like go and you meet once a week and you learn how to write short fiction or take a photography class, something along those lines. And those things are generally less than $100. So we're not talking about, like enroll in college and spend $1,000 on a class. There's more. Stay tuned.
When her plush and comfy life suddenly and unexpectedly fell apart, Brooke and her dog Cloud set out to defy the odds. If this is a man's world, as they say, living on the streets is no place for a young woman. One day she awoke in the redwood forest and realized she had become a hobo, and would ultimately come to know exactly what it means to survive. How to Be a Hobo by Brooke Willett is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. In 2115 New England, there are no borders, no states, and no regulations, yet never has a more peaceful and prosperous place existed. But Mr. Drake's security company has seen better days. Faced with the prospect of waning power, Mr. Drake intends to replace the anarchy of New England with a government. But at what cost? Will anybody care? And can anyone stop him? Anarchy in New England by Joe Jarvis is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry, online at fppradio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Here in the closing moments of the show. And unfortunately, there will not be time for me to delve into the ways that you can use stand-up comedians as a way to overcome your fear of public speaking. I'll keep that in the show notes. Might bring it on Monday, depending on what I wind up reading over the weekend. But we're talking about 5 unusual but effective techniques for overcoming anxiety. Let me just go back over these. They say sing your favorite song, sing a song you kind of like, sing songs from an artist you like. You don't have to sing it well, just sing, because singing has been proven to cheer people up. They then say be creative, start drawing, start coloring, do something creative, basically is the point there. Number 3 is get a punching bag and a set of gloves, or actually any physical exertion. Go for a walk, lift weights, hit a punching bag, ride your bike, something physical. Number 4, start cleaning. Do household chores, because a cleaner house equals generally a cleaner, less scattered mind, and it also winds up helping you be a little bit happier. Number 5 on the list here, they say, hear out the voice of doubt and then prove it wrong. And they're talking about the inner voice, not external voices. But still, you again, if your sole point is to just prove people wrong, then, that's not really a purpose for living. And I say that as somebody that, one of my goals in life is to prove people wrong. And, I want something else for myself, if that makes sense. But they give an example. They say, practice being in uncomfortable and intimidating situations. While this might initially give you some anxiety, it will also give you insight into proper reactions and solutions. Moreover, you can take up a new course where you're surrounded by new people. And as I was mentioning, they're not talking about, go enroll in college and spend thousands of dollars. But find like a continuing education class where it's like $100 for, several months. There's more advice in here. As always, it will be posted in the show notes. And don't forget, every Wednesday, I answer your questions. Send those over AMA@FPPradio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copyright. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas, which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.